The famous comic strip detective with a yellow trench coat begins a hard-boiled crime case when he goes after gangsters who gunned down a prominent city politician. It's all right here in Dick Tracy #1 from Mad Cave Studios. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Dick Tracy #1 from Mad Cave Studios. Let's talk about the credits before we get started. This issue was written by Alex Segura and Michael Morrissey as co-writers. Art by Geraldo Borges. Colors by Mark Englert. Letters by Jim Campbell. And the cover art for cover A, the main cover, is also drawn by Geraldo Borges. All right, so let's jump right in. The issue begins with a prologue. We have a prominent politician by the name of Emil Trueheart meeting with a city reporter by the name of Langdon Marsh, and they're meeting at a diner in the wee hours of the morning when hopefully nobody's noticing that they're having a conversation. From the bits and pieces of the talk, we get the impression that Trueheart is about to expose individuals within the city government for being on the take, for corruption, or any number of different crimes. And suddenly, somebody breaks through the door with a Tommy gun and a few other goons, and they just start peppering the place with bullets. By the time the chaos is over, Marsh and Trueheart are both dead. The next morning, the police are taking stock of the damage and all the dead bodies that are laying in this diner, when suddenly we get the big dramatic entrance moment. It is Dick Tracy, who is on the case to try and figure out who killed all these people. After a brief bit of exchanges with the police who are already on the scene, Dick Tracy takes a look at the dead bodies and recognizes that Trueheart and Marsh were the true targets because they are the ones that were killed up close and with precision. Everybody else appears to be collateral damage. Suddenly there's a ruckus outside, and it is Tess Trueheart, who is Emil Trueheart's daughter, and she's also an ace reporter, an investigative reporter, and sort of a Lois Lane archetype. And she's determined to find out who killed her father. A little bit later, we catch up with Dick Tracy and his chief as they're meeting in the chief's home for an early morning breakfast to talk about what Dick Tracy's found so far. The chief is warning Dick not to push too hard, that he's got police officers scouring the city, going door to door, looking for information. Dick Tracy says, nope, not on my watch. I can't sit back while something this evil is happening in my city. And here we get a good idea of the relationship between the chief and Dick Tracy, and also you get good insight into Dick Tracy's personality, about how he's obsessively driven to see justice done and to stop crime. Then we cut to a scene where we catch up with Tess Trueheart as she's trying to search her father's office. She's resigned herself to the fact that her father was into something possibly corrupt or malicious, and she's looking for any kind of diaries or any kind of logs or any kind of information that she is convinced her father would have left. She does find a book that has meeting information, and in that meeting information, she finds the name Mumbles, which is a long time, if you know the original comic strip, one of the gangsters that is basically a type of a secret informant. And then she's interrupted by two goons who appear to be looking for information just as she is. She tries to pretend she's a secretary, but they aren't buying it, and she manages to stab one of them with a letter opener and makes for the door and dashes out into the street to find Dick Tracy and seek help. Tess eventually finds Dick Tracy and tells him what she's found. Dick is aware of Mumbles, and the two of them drive out to kind of an old abandoned part of the town where they break into an old office building, and they find Mumbles and they take him into custody. When they get close to the police station, suddenly a car drives up and somebody steps out with a Tommy gun looking to gun Mumbles down before he can say anything. And it is also longtime Dick Tracy villain Flat Top. There's a shootout, but Dick manages to get everybody into his car and drive away while shooting out a fire hydrant to spray down Flat Top and prevent him from following. That night, we catch up with Flat Top meeting with some of his goons down by the docks, where he's talking to a mysterious figure who's in the shadows, but only smoking a cigar. That's the only reason you know he's there. And we find out that this man is determined to enact some kind of plan that will give him power over the city, and he needs Flat Top and his guys to do it. And we end with a cliffhanger that there's some mysterious figure who's in town that's looking to throw a monkey wrench in the entire city's political system. So what do we like about this issue? If you put aside the comic strip cartoonish origins of Dick Tracy, this is a pretty proper hard-boiled crime detective type story set in 1947. The character work is grounded and gritty and serious. Nothing here is played for laughs. Nothing here is played for jokes, or not that the original comic strip was jokey, but it was very much a lighter tone. Here, the tone is darker. It's more grounded. It's more dramatic. It's more serious. And for the type of story that Segura and Morrissey are telling, it plays off really well. What didn't we like about this issue? Only the fact that it's not necessarily inconsistent with the source material, but it does. The more you think about it, the less it makes sense. Dick Tracy takes Tess along on everything that he's doing, which he knows is incredibly dangerous. And yes, she's a sort of nosy reporter and very much a spitfire and not somebody you want to mess with. But at the same time, he doesn't have to take her along on whenever he's got his gun drawn trying to take down gangsters and getting into shootouts. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense if he's interested in protecting the innocent. Yes, it's consistent with the source material, but if they're going to do a little bit of an updated version, finding some way to keep Tess occupied without her just tagging along on dangerous detective work seems like it would have been a better choice. So it just sticks out. It seems a little bit odd. Let's switch gears to talk about Geraldo Borges' art. He relies heavily on shadows, dark lines, thick lines, silhouettes, and all the staples that you would expect from a detective noir type of story. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is super dark and super heavy and that you can't see what's going on. You can definitely see what's going on, but it suits a hard-boiled detective noir story very well. If we're looking for a little bit of a nitpick on the art, I would say that the line work could be a little cleaner. It could be a little bit more pronounced, especially when you have strange characters like Mumbles and Flat Top, who are not just named that because that's their nickname, but they have physical attributes that make that nickname possible. You don't get the clarity that Mumbles' mouth is kind of off to the side, like he's talking out of the side of his mouth. Flat Top just sort of in some scenes just looks like he has his hair parted down the middle. The flat is not as pronounced as it could be, except in some of the silhouettes. So the line work could have been cleaner. It could have been a little bit more pronounced. That would have helped. But overall, the art does look very good. Final thoughts. Dick Tracy has a great murder mystery at its heart. Very strong detective noir, crime noir vibes, which is what appears the creators were going for. You get all the classic elements of the original source material for Dick Tracy, and the ending is pretty strong. You want to know what's going to happen next, and you're very much invested in Dick Tracy as a character. Therefore, we're going to give Dick Tracy #1 from Mad Cave Studios an 8.8 out of 10. If it wasn't for just a little bit of lack of cleanness in the art and a little bit of clarity about why Tess is tagging along to everything, I think it would have been even a 9.5, 9 to a 9.5. But overall, really happy with this first issue. I want to see more of this series, and we're hoping that Mad Cave can hold on to it and do some great stuff for the foreseeable future. So what do you think about Dick Tracy? Are you a fan of the source material? Do you only know Dick Tracy from the movie starring Warren Beatty, or do you just not know Dick Tracy at all? Either way, we want to know what's your opinion on Dick Tracy, and are you looking forward to picking up this issue? Leave your comments down below. Also, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and if you like more reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.